Give me land, lots of land, and the starry skies above. Don't fence me in. Let me ride through the wide open country that I love. Don't fence me in. Let me be by myself in the evening breeze. Listen to the murmur of the cottonwood trees. Send me off forever, but I ask you please. Don't fence me in. Don't fence me in. Just turn me loose. Let me straddle my own saddle underneath the western skies. On my cayuse, let me wander over yonder till I see the mountains rise. I want to ride to the ridge.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Allman Report. Wow, this feels like an old shoe. I'll explain that in a moment. I'm Tim Jones of the Tim Jones and Chris Harp Show, in for one Jamie Allman, Master Allman, here on a beautiful Monday, finally a beautiful Monday afternoon here in the Heartland. I say that because we've been under the deluge for the last 3 weeks. I mean, it's been like rain-mageddon, storm-mageddon, tornado-mageddon, and now it is like 80 degrees and low humidity. My coffee boy just arrived. Very good. And it is just fantastic here this afternoon. This is 1019 941 News Talk STL, newstalkstl.com, streaming around the planet on our app. And if you have the app, you have a radio station in your pocket. And somebody this morning was asking me about a certain area of the listening area, and they're having some trouble. And I said, no, don't. That's so old fashioned. That's so like boomer, just download the app and you will have News Talk STL in your hand, in your pocket, available with you around the planet. Yeah, wherever you have a Wi-Fi or cell signal, you'll be able to listen to the Allman Report, to the Tim Jones and Chris Harp Show, to all of our other great programming throughout the entire day, newstalkstl.com. Hey, I said this feels like an old shoe because, man, boy, that music takes me back. Don't fence me in. Of course, the theme song of the Allman Report, going back many years, maybe even decades, and going back through many different iterations of the Allman Report on other radio stations, of which we shall not mention or talk about here today, because now Jamie Allman is all news talk all the time. And I'm so honored and privileged to be filling in like I used to fill in all the time for Jamie Allman. As you can tell, I'm giddy with excitement today. And who wouldn't be? We've got a lot to get to throughout the program this afternoon. If you're watching us on one of our 5 streaming platforms, Rumble, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Instagram, you'll see that I'm at my usual spot where I always roost during the Tim Jones and Chris Harp Show. And I have producer Ashlyn in the studio with me here today. I'm not going to make her talk at this moment because she's just worried about making sure all the bells and whistles and buttons and dials work properly. I wouldn't know the difference, and neither would you if she does screw up, because, well, she's not going to, but even if she does, don't worry, Ashlyn. Nobody will know the difference anyway. I'll just keep talking. You don't have to worry about that. We got a great program here this afternoon. And if you are watching on the monitors, I'm not sure which all the monitors are on, you might see the new chairman of the Missouri Freedom Caucus, our own state senator, Nick Schroer. He's in studio with us, and he's going to be jumping on here around 12:20. I may bring him in at the end of this segment just to say hello to all you all. And I think the vice chairman, Representative Justin Sparks, may be joining us as well. He's a bit, his world's a bit hectic and frenetic these days because, unfortunately, the not very special session, as I've termed it, is going to be continuing this week in Jefferson City. And I'm just going to tell you, folks, I've always shot you straight. I shot you straight when I was a state rep, when I got my start on radio with Jamie Allman. I used to go down to one of the old stations Jamie was on, that I ended up being on in a limited capacity. I was brought before one Jamie Allman as I was a young person at the time. I was a young man. I was a young legislator because I had literally just begun my legislative career. And a fellow by the name of Rodney Boyd, who you hear frequently on this station, especially on Colombo and Company. Rodney Boyd was famous for, Rodney's a great guy. He is a government affairs specialist. Some call him a lobbyist. He's one of the good guys. We don't always agree on everything. I love some of Rodney's clients. Some I couldn't care less for. But Rodney's also a straight shooter and just a good fella. Very, very, one of the smartest government affairs fellas I've ever met. And Rodney had a knack for identifying folks who would always eventually be in some level of leadership in the House or the Senate. And I was I was honored and privileged and humbled when Rodney said to me one day, we're going back to like 2000, probably 7 or 8. Rodney said, "Hey, do you listen to this certain station? You listen to this guy named Jamie Allman?" And I said, "Heck yeah, I'm a big fan." He goes, "Well, you want to come on the show with me?" I said, "Oh, really? I can do that?" He goes, "Yeah, you come in with me and we'll talk to Jamie." I was scared, whatless. And I had never really been on a radio station. I did a little bit of college radio, not much. And I'd always wanted to do radio. And I was a huge fan of radio. And, as a little kid, I'd sleep with this little transistor radio. I think some other people have told that story as well, they weren't with me, sleeping with me, but, never mind. Let's move on. And so I went in and I got interviewed by Jamie Allman, and Rodney was there kind of holding my hand. He was my training wheels. And then I guess Jamie liked what I had to say, or thought I was funny or interesting or goofy, and had me back by myself. And so I interviewed then. And then I ended up getting a segment with him where we would do like the Jones Jeff City Journal once a week. And so during session, I would call in and I'd do these hits in the morning with Jamie. And then one day, and this is the funniest story, I tell this a lot. So Jeff Allen, who was also at that station at the time, and the producer said, "Hey, you want to fill in? You want to do some fill-in work?" They said something like, "For Jamie's show," or "with Jamie." I was led to believe I was going to be going in on like a holiday and doing the show with Jamie. I don't know why I thought that, but I thought that for some silly reason. And so I showed up. They put me on the safest day you can ever launch and do a radio station. It was the day after Christmas, Boxing Day, 26th of December. Everybody's sleeping in. Everybody's off school. Nobody's driving into work. And so I walk into the studio. It was a morning show. And I walk in at like 5 a.m. And I'm like, "Well, where's Allman?" And they're like, "Well, he's off today." I said, "What do you mean he's off today? I'm supposed to be doing the show with him." Like, "You're not doing the show with him. You're doing the show for him." I said, "Doing the show for him? What does that mean?" They're like, "Well, when we turn the microphones on, you just start talking." I said, "Well, what do I say?" So I was so confused. So this is like 5:30 in the morning. Now I'm completely flustered. I'm completely terrified. So producer Ashlyn, don't worry, because I've had the same experience you have. And they turned the microphones on and I just started talking. And thank goodness I had these two wonderful ladies with me at the time. There was a, you all know, you're familiar with Katie Fitzpatrick, formerly Katie Bailey. There was another Katie before that Katie. And that Katie went and moved to Indianapolis at some point. And I think it was her. She had really curly hair. I remember that. And I think the famous Denise may have been with us as well. They got me through that first show. I didn't faint. I didn't pass out. And we had a great time. And then after they were done, they were like, "Congratulations, you just did your first 3-hour morning radio show." And I was like, "Oh, I guess I did." And so anyway, how many years later now? 15 years later, 16, 17. Oh boy. No, I think I got to keep going. 17 years later, here we are. And I'm now subbing for Jamie Allman on the Allman Report, which is one of the lead-in shows to the Tim Jones and Chris Harper show. So see, everybody can eventually, even a recovering, washed-up politician, if there's hope for me, there's hope for you all. So welcome to the program. We got a lot to get to today. Over the weekend, and I know the 2 morning shows have been really hitting on this, as we all should. So the insanity of, I've nicknamed her, I don't know if anybody has said this yet today. Maybe I'll be the first one to say it. Baghdad Karen Bass. Okay, you guys all remember Baghdad Bob, right? As the bombs from the first Iraqi war, some of you young folks may not remember this, but the bombs, the U.S. and the Allied bombs are literally falling in Baghdad. And there was this spokesperson for Saddam Hussein, for the Iraqis. And he was like, I won't do the accent because I'll get in trouble. I'll be called a xenophobe or something, or a racist. He was saying Baghdad Bob. They nicknamed him that, okay? Everybody nicknamed him that. The whole world nicknamed him that. This guy, Baghdad Bob, the communications spokesperson for Saddam Hussein, was saying, everything's fine. There's nothing going on. And literally behind him, the U.S. and Allied bombs were falling on the Iraqi capital. There's explosions behind him. It was very similar. For those of you younger folks, you'll remember this. This just happened years ago when CNN was in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and they were having mostly peaceful riots. Mostly peaceful protests. And there was like mushroom clouds of flame and burning cars going up behind him. So now we have Baghdad Karen Bass out there in LA. So once again, how many times in my lifetime has the lunatic left and the Soros-funded AstroTurf protesters set L.A. on fire, right? How many times have they done it? The OJ riots, and you can go on from there. So this is just another. So for those of you who think this is new, no, the lunatic left is trying to burn their own city down once again. Why do these lefties do this to their own stuff? I don't know. This is why we can't have nice things in urban and sometimes now even suburban America. So Baghdad Karen Bass over the weekend has the audacity to say, we got everything under control. All of our police officers are handling this. And now Donald Trump has sent in the National Guard, and now it's a chaotic crisis. You've got to be kidding me. It was a disaster and getting worse before Donald Trump sent in the National Guard because LA and California and these other blue states and these open borders left-wing lunatics have decided it's okay for Mexico and every other country in the nation to invade the United States of America with illegal aliens, and we should do nothing about it. And so if we try to reinstitute law and order under Donald Trump and Tom Homan's and under Donald Trump under Donald Trump and Tom Homan's administration, then we're the bad guys. The guys who want law and order and proper adjudication of people improperly crossing into our country. We're the bad people. They were already burning down LA, just like they've done a bazillion times in the past. And Donald Trump said he took immediate action and he sent in the guard. And then he went to a UFC event, which I think was just, I feel like we're back in ancient Rome, bread and circuses. Here was Donald Trump over the weekend explaining his position on the LA riots and the further actions that he is willing to take.
We're going to be watching it very closely. And when they spit at people, they spit. That's their new thing. They spit and worse. You know what they throw at them, right? And when that happens, I have a little statement. They say, they spit, we hit. And I told them, nobody's going to spit on our police officers. Nobody's going to spit on our military, which they do as a common thing. They get up to them this far away, and then they start spitting in their face. That happens, they get hit very hard.
I love that we have a new Trumpism. They spit, we hit. And there's so much in those little phrases that he mentions. And we're going to talk to State Senator Nick Schroer about all that and more. I thought I'd bring him into the conversation now. He is deep in conversation, I think, with someone else because there's a lot going on in Jefferson City. But so we know you bring in Nick. Senator, how you doing this afternoon? All well?
I am rocking and rolling. Got a new job.
You did. Lucky you. You needed a new job, didn't you?
Yeah, as the world is burning down.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you add to it, 8.
Well, congratulations, Mr. Chairman. I'm so excited that you're the new chairman of the Missouri Freedom Caucus.
Yeah, well, thank you for all your leadership. We're still young. I think we're going on, our second year?
But we haven't even had 2 years, so people forget that, right? Hey, Nick, before we go to break here, am I correct? And you're a bit younger than me, but does it feel like every 5 to 7 years the lunatic left decides to burn LA down for some reason or other?
Yeah, if it's not St. Louis or Ferguson, it's some other left-wing state, and it always happens under a Republican presidential term. So I kind of wonder what is happening there. We saw with Ferguson, there were paid protesters, paid rioters that weren't even from Missouri that made their way here to damage our city. And I think that's what's happening in LA as well. And only time will tell. It's just infuriating that I haven't seen one single American flag that wasn't burning. We've seen all these other nations in California when ICE is there to get illegal immigrants, violent illegal immigrants, off of the streets.
To prove this is an invasion by a foreign country, to your point, they keep showing, we're not making this up, they keep showing on the televisions these guys running around with Mexican flags like this is an invasion from Mexico.
Yeah, there have been several different nations' flags that I've seen, and the only time that I've seen an American flag, masked individuals are burning it.
Indeed.
And again, look, I'm for peaceful protesting. So what the Freedom Caucus has been known for is protesting the egregious, tyrannical edicts from the last governor, and now we're seeing what's happening with the sports stadium issue heading to the House this week. But yeah, I'm all for peaceful protesting. I'm all for vocalizing your disdain for whatever's going on. But when you start smashing in cop cars, burning cars, and stealing Air Jordans. That's taking it to the next level.
And Nick, let's remind people that how far the Democratic Party has fallen. Back in 1968, there was a massive protest followed by extremely dangerous and violent riots. August 28th, 1968, a police riot occurring on Michigan Avenue in front of the Democratic Party's convention headquarters. And who called in the National Guard? A Democratic U.S. president.
Yeah.
Used to be a time when Democrats used to be in favor of law and order, just like the Republicans have always been, just like all political parties should
Well, I'm
be.
sure you saw when Gavin Newsom was correcting somebody who shared a video that happened in 2020 of cop cars and state troopers burning on the highway. And he said, hey, no, that's an old video. It happened in 2020. So you're telling me that during this tyrannical reign of Gavin Newsom, you can't stand up for law and order? You can't stand up for law enforcement? And in 2020 and in 2025, we're seeing the same thing happening with a Republican president in the White House and Gavin Newsom sitting on his hands as the city burns.
History doesn't always exactly repeat itself, but it definitely echoes down through the ages. All right, we're going to continue our conversation with Missouri State Senator Nick Shore. He's the host of Stand and Fight, heard every Sunday evening here, SR1 Sundays on News Talk STL. He's going to be joined by the vice chair of the Freedom Caucus, State Representative Justin Sparks. Every time conservatives make a mistake or maybe don't do exactly the right thing, everybody declares conservatism dead. I'm here to tell you that State Senator Nick Shore and Representative Justin Sparks will tell you how conservatism will move on and will carry on in Jefferson City and all across the country. We'll have that discussion next on the Allman Report. Tim Jones filling in for Jamie Allman, 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
For podcasts, articles, and more, find us on newstalkstl.com. This is 101.9 and 94.1.
I have to tell you, if this is how they're going to behave, I'm rethinking my position.
News Talk STL.
Hey folks, Jamie Allman here for Schneider's True Value Hardware Store right there in Old Town St. Peter's for 100 years. Jerry and the team ready to help you with any yard project you might have or any inside project you might have. They have a bunch of people there who know exactly how to walk you through anything you need and answer all of your questions. It's all about full service. It's all about being family owned. And by the way, when it comes to the prices, forget about the big box stores. I'm telling you, Schneider's is just as competitive as anybody in terms of pricing. Also, by the way, specializing in the steel lawn care products. These are the battery operated tools, and they're really top notch compared to all the other brands. They have the great prices on all those tools, as well as full parts and service for you. So that's what it's all about at Schneider's True Value Hardware. Jerry and Charlie and the rest of the team, thank you for supporting free, common sense, conservative radio. Just go to truevalue.com/Schneiders. It's Schneider's True Value Hardware right there in Old Town St. Peter's for 100 years.
Success. It's discipline. It's teamwork. It's the drive and passion inside of us that comes before all recognition. It's the best in each of us, made better by the best in all of us. Whatever success looks like to you, Stifel is invested in yours. That's why Stifel is one of the fastest growing global wealth management firms in the country. So whether you're an advisor or an investor, choose Stifel, where success meets success. Stifel Nicholas & Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
Get ready, St. Louis. The Cubs are coming to town June 23rd through the 26th. The Cardinals host baseball's best rivalry at Busch Stadium in a series that always delivers. The Chicago STL rivalry is legendary, and the energy in the ballpark will be electric. It's the perfect way to spend a summer day or night at the ballpark with passionate fans and nonstop action. Don't miss out. Get your tickets today at cardinals.com/tickets.
Hey, this is Sonny Gray, St. Louis Cardinals for the Lou.
Hey parents, looking for something fun and unforgettable to do with the kids? Bring the whole family to a Cardinals game at Busch Stadium. From kid-friendly activities and giveaways to awesome promotions like Kids Run the Bases. Your little ones will have a blast, and so will you. Check out Family Sundays, presented by Smithfield, where select tickets include a free jumbo hot dog and soda. There's nothing like sharing the magic of Cardinals baseball together. Make your memories this summer at Busch Stadium. Tickets are available at cardinals.com.
Looking for an underwater adventure or a scaly new friend? Dive into Tropical World Pets on Watson Road. For 32 years, this family-owned wonderland has been St. Louis's go-to destination for all things aquatic and reptilian. With over 7,000 square feet of aquariums, we're home to the area's largest selection of freshwater fish, including rare cichlids you won't find anywhere else. But that's not all. We've got tarantulas, snakes, and lizards galore. Tropical World Pets, 314-849-4020, or visit twpstl.com.
Free speech is alive and well in America right here.
It's about time somebody stood up for true American values.
What this country needs is some backbone.
Finally, a president who wants to make real change.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Like and subscribe to us on Rumble. News Talk STL.
Tax rates are too high today, and tax revenues are too low. And the soundest way to raise the revenues in the long run is to cut the rates now. And the reason is that only full employment can balance the budget, and tax reduction can pave the way to that employment. The purpose of cutting taxes now is not to incur a budget deficit, but to achieve the more prosperous, expanding economy, which can bring a budget surplus.
Huh. Well, those were the days when Democrats weren't insane and both parties understood sound economic theory. And there's JFK sounding more conservative, unfortunately, than some so-called Republicans up on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and right here in the Show Me State. Welcome back to the Allman Report. Tim Jones in for the one and only Jamie Allman today. Jamie, I believe, is back tomorrow. He went on a little trip to visit one of his wonderful children, so he'll be back in the saddle tomorrow. It's June the 9th, 2025, just after 12:30 in the p.m. here in the Heartland. Going to bring into the conversation now, as I promised, two of my very best friends, both in the political and, you know what, non-political world. I just like these guys. And they would be State Senator Nick Schroer, who was with us our first segment, and Representative Justin Sparks. You hear these fellas throughout the week because they're apparently have nothing else to do. No, good afternoon, guys. Thank you so much for always being available and lending your very important voices to this station and to this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Always happy to be here.
Guys, I want to talk about a lot of things regarding what's going on in the extraordinary session. Some call it a special session. It's not so special a session. But Justin...
It's real special.
Yeah, boy, it's real special, all right.
It's like a short bus. Real special.
That's
extraordinarily crappy
That's
session.
how special it is.
Yeah.
Justin, as a recovering member of our wonderful men and women in blue in our law enforcement community, you have to just be beside yourself watching another democratically run city burn itself to the ground.
So sad and predictable. You know, and I'm on threads with all my old buddies, tactical buddies, and we just we're just showing pictures and videos and remembering what it felt like, what it smelled like. And law enforcement is like so many other, government institutions. We just repeat the same mistakes over and over again. We keep looking at our police officers and we're like, the only difference is we have a great president now that's in charge who is committed to safety and to actually protecting those that protect us in our society. So that's at least encouraging, but I think this is going to get worse before it gets better.
And Justin, how bad is it how frustrating is it that the media, the legacy media, who are supposed to just be reporting what's happening on the ground, use phrases like mostly peaceful riots and take the sides of the law breakers, not the law enforcers?
Well, it goes to prove again that entire institution's been compromised. And we've known that for a long time. We've known that the legacy mainstream, lamestream media is compromised and in fact is now a functioning tool of the left.
Yeah.
And the left is no longer just the ideological left where we can differ and we can have these great debates. Now it's actually endorsing essentially a color revolution in California right now is what we're seeing, a Marxist violent revolution. And what they're hoping to do is fund it just like they did in Ferguson and George Floyd, pour gasoline on the flames at the cost of innocent civilians and our wonderful police officers in hopes of inflaming tensions across the country. That's really the real goal. We have to speak that and articulate it, and we have to stop it before it gets out of control because that's where it's headed.
Indeed. All right, if you guys can, we're going to do this segment, and then if you guys can hang for another segment, we've got a lot to talk about regarding Jefferson City. So every time we have a bump in the road like what we witnessed over the last week in the Senate. Nick, both of you guys have seen this time and time again. The Jefferson City swamp declares the death of conservatism, the end of things like the Freedom Caucus or its progenitor, the Conservative Caucus. Well, you guys don't look dead. You're here standing on your own 2 feet. And I believe, Nick, you were just chosen unanimously by the Missouri Freedom Caucus to be the next chairman of the Freedom Caucus. Justin's still the vice chairman of the Freedom Caucus until his term runs out at the end of this year. Senator Nick Schroer, is conservatism in the Missouri Freedom Caucus dead in Jefferson City?
No, I think it's more alive than ever before. And the reason I say that is due to the fact that we had this bump in the road with the special session. As the Freedom Caucus, took a hard line. We were going to vote no and more than likely stand in the way until we can get some sort of use that leverage and get tax cuts to the people of Missouri. And we had a divided Freedom Caucus, and it's still out for questioning what in the world happened. I know the two guys who voted for it meant well, and they
I think they thought they were getting something that maybe now they realize they may not have.
Well, and to pour the gasoline on the fire, on the almost 3 a.m. mark when a new substitute was rolled out, there were parts of the agreement that they had with other Republicans that were removed. So I think all of this chaos that ensued has reignited conservatism, actual conservatism, because look, we had a new president, a new governor. The governor was working with the Freedom Caucus on big bills that Justin and I had filed. I think your first year was one of your first bills that you filed. That was the first bill that we got to the governor's desk. In so many other big wins that we had this year, I think a lot of the grassroots community, I think even the Freedom Caucus, we kind of got complacent and we got comfortable.
Yeah.
And this, what's happening around DC right now with the one big beautiful bill and all of the other chaos within the Republican Party, it's starting to spill downstream into the state of Missouri. And I think for good reason, because now our eyes are wide awake again. And the grassroots is teaming with us. We're reaching out, restarting those conversations so we can have a bigger, better team to fight the tyranny in Jefferson City.
And Justin, to Nick's point, look, the Freedom Caucus in Missouri isn't even 2 years old, but before it existed, there was a group of legislators known as the Conservative Caucus. And I can tell you guys, going back 15 years, there has always been some entity described as the Conservative Caucus in both chambers. So it's kind of silly to say that conservatism is dead and gone just because a member or two may have made a mistake. We'll let them speak for themselves.
Right.
The agreement was that the bill would be opposed all the way through the process in any ways we were able to oppose it as a Freedom Caucus, unless we got tax relief for all Missourians. We got tax relief for some Missourians.
Well, maybe
if it even holds up.
Right.
But Justin, to say that if you're going to have conservatives and you're going to vote conservatively, then you might as well have a brand and own that and use that as a tool to get more conservatives and more conservatism through a supermajority Republican legislature, right?
No, you're exactly right. And Nick, you said it so well. When you were talking about the left would love to see, or your moderates in our state would love for the Freedom Caucus to go away, right? Of course they would, because then there's no opposition. They can do things like what we're seeing with the stadium bailout for billionaires. And the truth is, refining takes heat, right? There's some positives and negatives, and sometimes there's some pain. And that's a good thing, because the conversation we're having right now is not is conservatism or is the Freedom Caucus going away, but actually coming out stronger because of these conversations that we have to have. And they're tough conversations with our friends. But these are things that have to happen. We know, because we've committed to representing the people, representing our districts, representing our state. And ideologically, what does that actually look forward for the future? And so these are the conversations that must happen. And yes, we're going to disagree, but we're always going to come out on the other side stronger, which is exactly what you're seeing with our new chairman.
And Mr. Chairman, which State Senator Nick Schroer now is, one of your first sets of acts were to try to get everybody, first of all, back on the same page. And to the House's credit, let's remind everyone that this bill, a version of this bill, and I don't think it's gotten any better, it's arguably gotten worse, a version of this bill, the stadium billionaire bailout, went through the House in the last 3 days of session, and every House Freedom Caucus member voted no. Senator, I think one of your first acts was to get everybody back together and just make sure we're all on the same page. I believe the House is standing absolutely united on their opposition to the bill, and they're trying to get more people to the party, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think from the offline conversations that I've had with Justin, and I've even had with some House members, there were House members that voted for this when it came over initially the last week of session, who are now, their eyes are wide open because of the conversations that we in the grassroots are having on this issue. Look, this is a bill that it's not only funding stadium deals for the Kansas City Chiefs and the Royals, by the way, who have land in Overland Park, the Chiefs, by the way, who ushered in the Rams leaving and breaking the NFL's rules. But this is also so expansive that the Blues, the Cardinals, anybody in any national team in the state of Missouri can utilize this tax break scheme for them, but not for us. And that's why the whole onus of the fighting back on this was, let's use this opportunity. The governor really wants it. Let's get tax breaks for everybody, not just these big billionaires that own stadiums and own teams. So it's going to be curious to see how this next week is going to go. I know it's going into a committee, I think, that is chaired by the person handling the bill. So it's probably not going to have any amendments, but there's going to be a fight. There's going to be a fight. There's going to be a magnifying glass put on this to figure out who and why were certain things stripped out at 3 a.m. Look, I was voting no anyways. It wasn't cutting taxes at best. If it got to the ballot, it would have allowed people for a tax freeze, not a tax cut. So that's why I was adamantly against it. But now the fact that the November, where it would have been put on a November ballot, is now moved to April, when 8 to 10% of the people show up, and the non-severability clause making it an all or nothing. If the courts throw this out, the entire thing gets thrown away. That was converted to a severability clause. So there's going to be a lot of fighting. If all the parties want to make amends and kick it back over to the Senate so we can debate, let's do it. If not, this is going to spill over to next session.
And Representative Sparks, I have heard and seen from both sides of the philosophical and political spectrum about 80 zillion reasons to vote against this Frankenstein monster, this stadium funding bill. And Justin, I haven't had a single person come up to me over the last week, and I talk to and speak with and meet with a lot of people across
Republicans and Democrats.
Yes, yep. Justin, I haven't heard anybody give me a good reason as to why we should vote for this.
Not a single one. And I was just on a phone call with a representative on the way in here, and he's from the Kansas City area. And what he was saying is, this has been talked about for 10 years. They've been trying to do this. This is not something new. And overwhelmingly, the voters there have rejected this time and time and time again. Voters don't want to increase their taxes for stadiums for millionaire and billionaires. We just don't do it. And we have to have a better and bigger, broader conversation about what makes our state and the future of our state viable and prosperous. And this is exactly the wrong thing to do. This is why, guys, who we choose for governor matters. Because you see the outsized influence of our leadership and the pressure they put on representatives and senators. And these people, unfortunately, feel that pressure and then go along with schemes like this. This will be a vote that is remembered for years to come. For years
it'll be felt. If this thing passes, it'll be felt for years to come, because it's in the billions at that 30-year mark. And that's only taking account for two teams, not the Blues, not the Cardinals, not the Battlehawks, that could tap into this as well.
And to put a capstone on this, and then we'll take a quick break and come back. And more importantly, we're going to talk about what we're going to do moving forward, what you fellas' vision is, and what the vision of the now 16 members and growing, because Justin, as you always point out to me, the Freedom Caucus is becoming viewed as the conservative conscience, and people are realizing how bad the establishment is in Jefferson City and how they've taken the Republican Party in a wayward direction. Nick, just to put a capstone on this, the agreement that the Freedom Caucus unanimously agreed upon last week and even issued a press release on was that the vote on the bill would be a no on the stadium funding plan unless there was tax relief for all Missourians. That wasn't achieved, right? And we may never know why the two senators vote against it, but we don't hate them. We don't throw them out in the cold. We allow them to make a mistake. The Senator Rick Bratton has basically admitted his own accountability on this, but we want him to remain in the caucus because someone gets to make a mistake without being crucified. And there's a lot of other groups out there, right, Nick, who want to work with us, who feel for us in this time of challenge and pain, and want to work with the Freedom Caucus to make sure that our voice gets louder, not softer.
Well, I mean, as Christians, we're all sinners. We all make mistakes. And if we're thrown out and cast out for the one mistake that we may make, then who are we? I mean, none of us here are Jesus. None of us are to judge. But Rick Breton has admitted, look, I thought this was a good deal. I thought we were getting tax relief. After looking at all the factors, I made a mistake. And, we love him for admitting that. But who was influencing him? Who was planting these seeds that this was a good deal? That's what I want to know. But to your point, the Freedom Caucus took a stand. We said we're going to vote a hard no and may even filibuster this thing if we do not get tax relief for all Missourians. And at best, if this thing makes it past a judicial challenge, which I don't think it will.
It won't.
Yeah, I think on so many grounds, on equal protection, on special laws, this thing is unconstitutional. But let's say that hodgepodge makes it past there and gets on an April ballot. Good luck. Good luck. So, I mean, again, at best, this could be some tax freezes for some counties. But being an attorney and knowing the lay of the land, this will get challenged. It will get thrown out. The stadium deal will continue to go forward if the House passes it.
So we ultimately get a billionaire bailout for taxpayer-funded stadium financing and nothing for the taxpayers. That's likely what's going to happen. I completely agree with the good senator. All right, we're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to come back and talk about where do we go from here? What will be the vision for conservatives, the Freedom Caucus, and all of their allies throughout the rest of 2025 and into 2026 and beyond? We'll continue that discussion with Missouri State Senator Nick Schroer and State Representative Justin Sparks. All that straight ahead, 1019-94.1 News Talk STL.
This is News Talk STL at 1019, 99.1 HD3 and newstalkstl.com.
I really like all the things you're saying.
News, analysis, opinion.
Thank you very, very much.
News Talk STL.
Hey, Allman here. Let me tell you about Stewart's American Mortgage and Stewart as well as Jordan. Jordan is my lending partner because you all know I do real estate, and there's no better lender out there in terms of hooking you up for a new home and a loan that will involve no closing costs and, you know what, no appraisal fees. And no $300 for credit pulls. A lot of these lenders, it's their dirty little secret. They just go and nickel and dime you to death. That does not happen. I want you to Google the bagel loan. Google the bagel loan. That gets you in. There's an app there, everything else for you to fill out. And just make sure you let them know that Jamie sent you. And again, Jordan is a proven winner. So is Stewart with the bagel loan. Check it out right there on the web, thebagelloan.com. Also, when it comes to refinancing or debt consolidation, do not be afraid of the current environment with interest rates. They will sport the lowest interest rates you're going to find anywhere in the land. I trust these guys with my real estate livelihood, and I hope you will too. Just Google the bagel loan, Google the bagel loan. Stewart and Jordan, Google the bagel loan, proud supporters of free, common sense, conservative radio.
Hey, if you're 50 or older, you do not want to take any risk with your money. In fact, you want Leslie Consulting. My friend Bob Leslie can show you a gain and retain plan. Means that you never lose. Plus, you get up to a 20% bonus on day one. Leslie Consulting, a leader in brokerage and risk management. 314-721-0066. LeslieConsulting.com.
Yo, this is Vic. All during the month of June, Vic for Vets is proudly honoring our veterans. Every weekday at 11:05, you'll hear about that day's honoree and their incredible service to our country.
Hi, it's Ken. You want to nominate a veteran? Send their name, service information, and story to me, Ken, at newstalkstl.com.
Brought to you by Best Buy Flooring, Patriot Heating and Cooling, and DG Firearms.
Together, let's celebrate the heroes in our community, Vic for Vets, where honor meets gratitude.
This is Katie McKinney, founder and head of school for Lafayette Academy in Lake St. Louis. Recently, we had a new second grader come to Lafayette Academy who claimed he was stupid and hated reading. Within months of using our world-class literacy program, he was reading Harry Potter and loving it. He had just not been given the right tools. We invite you to our open house Wednesday, June 25th from 5 till 7 and hear from our current families and learn more about our dedicated teachers and world-class curriculum. To learn more, go to LafayetteAcademy.org. That's LafayetteAcademy.org.
Tim Jones here, being a recovering lawyer. Don't call me for your legal needs, but you should call Todd Sivia and the fine folks at Sivia Law. At Sivia Law, they'll help you through all of life's transitions, providing you with legal services in the areas of estate planning, elder law, special needs, real estate, personal injury, and much more. Locations across Western Illinois and Eastern Missouri, including right here in Creve Coeur and Wentzville. Call Sivia Law today for any and all of your legal needs. 833-995-WILL, CiviaLaw.com, CiviaLaw.com.
Life's too busy for home maintenance hassles. That's where Nicole White at Home Concierge Services comes in. From coordinating contractors and managing yearly maintenance appointments for your home and vehicles, to handling your mail, packages, and personal errands and shopping while you're home or away. Nicole takes care of the details so you don't have to. Nicole White at Home Concierge Services. Call 314-766-1996. 314-766-1996. Effortless living starts here.
On the next Larry Connors USA.
You don't want to miss Larry Connors USA, where you get news, analysis, opinion, and education.
Larry Connors USA. Now weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
You don't
like us on
how you
Facebook
let me,
at
you
News
don't
Talk
know
STL.
why you can't turn around and say goodbye.
I'd love to get your response to Governor Newsom saying, essentially, that your actions here are provocative, and the quote that he used was sowing chaos.
Governor Newsom's an embarrassment for the state. He's the one that's feeding this mantra. He supports sanctuary cities. He supports sanctuary laws. If he cared about public safety in the state of California, he would not have a sanctuary for criminals, where criminals get released to the streets of this state every day because of his policy.
Representative Justin Sparks. Boy, Tom Homan, as a law enforcement guy, you must admire that guy for getting right to the point all the time, every time.
So good. So good. Love him. And boy, he kind of, his background must be from Chicago. Is that what that accent is?
I don't know, but he's unfiltered.
Right? He's like, Governor Newsom sucks. Next question.
I wish we all could tap into that,
So
that
good.
unhinged, unfiltered, just blunt truth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think you tap into that.
I think you do indeed. Welcome back to the Allman Report. Tim Jones in the big chair today for one Jamie Allman. He'll be back in the saddle tomorrow. It's 12:50 here in the Heartland. And we're continuing our conversation with Missouri State Senator, the chairman of the Missouri Freedom Caucus, Nick Schroer, and the vice chairman of the Missouri Freedom Caucus, Representative Justin Sparks. Nick, so where does the Freedom Caucus go from here? As we know, it's an uphill battle in the House, but that doesn't mean that you guys are going to stop trying to reduce the vote count on this horrible, terrible, really bad bill. And I think that would be a loud message sent about how evil it is and wrong and unconstitutional and a violation of the... Look, Nick, nobody ran as a Republican last year on giving a multi-billion-dollar bailout to billionaire and millionaire sports team owners, did they?
No, they didn't. I don't know a single individual, Republican, Democrat, or somebody who lost the race. Nobody ran on this. And the voters spoke loud and clear down in the Kansas City area last year when they rejected raising their taxes to fund this stuff. Look, where are we going? We're going to do what we do on Sunday night. We're going to stand and fight.
Mm-hmm.
That was the whole impetus behind the name, is we need more fighters like Justin and others in the House and in the Senate to stand on the line and say, look, this boondoggle, billionaire boondoggle is not good for taxpayers. If we want to give special treatment to them, let's give special treatment to the people creating this money that is running the government right now. So we're going to stand, we're going to fight, we're going to take names. And try
this vote should be a litmus test, shouldn't it? For everybody, for everybody who comes and asks you guys and me for help in next year's election cycle. I'm not saying there's any quid pro quos, but there should be a basic measuring stick of whether or not you should be considered to be in the Republican Party, right?
100%. And now that we know that this mashed up deal, quote unquote deal, is not a good one at all. It's not a good one for taxpayers. It's going to get stripped off. There is no reason why any individual, barring an actual tax cut amendment coming onto this thing, that you should just let this thing pass or even vote for it. Heck, even if we would have got a actual tax cut on this bill, I would have still had to vote no. I would have still had to vote no, but it would have been better allowing this thing to move forward with actual relief coming to the people who are hurting right now more than ever.
And Representative Sparks, there's different levels of opposition that can be deployed, right? Sure. Last year, the Missouri Freedom Caucus came in hot and heavy, mainly because there was a guy named Senator Caleb Rowden who had been killing conservative priorities. Forget conservative. Killing all Republican priorities in the state for 6 years. People can blame it on other folks, but it was really him at its core. And so there's the filibuster power. There's voting against things. There's working with members. And ultimately, the Freedom Caucus is still learning how to deploy all those different levels of opposition. But you all want to get to yes on the things that we should be passing in this state, right?
That's right.
IP reform.
That's right. Funny you mentioned IP reform because it's all I hear about from everybody over and over and over again, asking why in the world are we having to deal with unregulated abortion and Amendment 3 or whatever it is, because we've been targeted in our state by out-of-state billionaires and millionaires and huge amounts of money coming into essentially hijack the process of how our Constitution is amended. And now we're looking at the legislature essentially becoming meaningless and irrelevant, even more so than it already is. And so we have to have those conversations. So when we talk about, okay, does anybody in this room want your sports team to leave your state? We want people to enjoy sports, right? But the question is, at what cost? Right. And everybody agrees, yeah, we want you to flourish. We want you to have a sports team. But what we should be talking about is what is actually in context. What is the most important thing? What is our priorities? What is more important? And frankly, it's about doing what is right for our constituents. And the hypocrisy only goes so far, guys. When we hear on the floor, I know in the Senate and in the House, you hear members for justifying their votes based on the fiscal note is so large, right? Look at the fiscal note on this boondoggle. It's ridiculous. Or you hear other justifications and rationalizations, and you're like, well, I have to do what's best for my constituents. Well, guys, the constituents from across the state is overwhelmingly opposed to this. So you have to ask yourself, why aren't you listening to the people? Why aren't you listening to your constituents? Or maybe, are you listening to your leadership? Are you listening to the governor's office?
Or the lobby corps?
Are you listening to the lobbyists? Are you listening to the people that actually matter? That's the conversation we need to have.
Yeah, that's the thing that's really overwhelming is there is bipartisan supermajority opposition to this billionaire boondoggle. Nick, I know you got to run before you get out of here. What is the Chairman Nick Schroer vision for the Freedom Caucus moving forward?
Well, reigniting the grassroots, having them team with us. We are their voice. We want to be their voice. So having regular meetings with grassroots across the state of Missouri, finding out what are some good things that we need to pass and where are the areas that didn't pass last year that are going to come back, like the Bayer bill, the glyphosate immunity bill. Let's target some of these areas, review legislation, stop the bad bills, move our state forward, stand and fight. That's what we're going to do as a Freedom Caucus.
Senator Nick Schroer stands and fights every Sunday night, and you hear him throughout the week here on the airwaves of News Talk STL. Senator, I know you got to run to another interview. Thank you much for stopping by. Representative Sparks, in the last minute or so we have here, despite all the contrarian views that were espoused that the Freedom Caucus would be the pariah, you have seen a growth in the Missouri House over the last year and a half for the Freedom Caucus members, haven't you? And you've seen more and more people looking at you and how you're actually voting on the House floor.
That's exactly right. Well, it's funny because when the new members come in with each election cycle, it's the same thing that we all go through. It's this kind of deer in the headlights, trial by fire. And you start realizing, well, how you're still finding out, where your office is and where the bathrooms are. And it happens so quickly, but people start to realize out of principle, wait, why are we voting this way? Why are we doing things a certain way? And they start to look for guidance. And that guidance is going to have to come from somewhere. It can either come from the wrong place or it can come from the place of conservatism. That's what the Freedom Caucus does. We provide that guiding light, that conscience of conservatism in our state. And it's having a real impact now with real members joining in the House. It's very exciting.
Amen, indeed. The Vice Chair of the Missouri Freedom Caucus, Representative Justin Sparks. You can find him on Facebook, Twitter, and all the other social media platforms. And you can find him right here on News Talk STL, Colombo and Company, every Thursday, right, with Tony?
You got it.
Indeed, and throughout the week. We'll be right back with Jonathan Williams talking Big Beautiful Bill up on Capitol Hill. That's next on the Allman Report, 101.9, 94.1, News Talk STL.
Tony Colombo here for my dentist, Dr. Matt Boscia at New Creation Dental Care, the one-stop shop for all your family's dental needs. And Dr. Boscia is always expanding his services, now including the incredible all-on-4 full arch implant procedure, full mouth restoration that can give you back your smile in as little as 1 day. No more suffering with damaged or missing teeth or poor fitting dentures. You can see some amazing smile makeovers, learn more about the all-on-4 procedure, and see everything Dr. Boscia can do right now at newcreationdentalcare.com.
Hey, DIY warriors, ready to transform your outdoor space? Start with Lee May Concrete Block, St. Louis's trusted family-owned manufacturer since 1947. Whether you're building a retaining wall, creating a backyard fireplace, or pouring concrete, Lee May's got you covered. From compact blocks to large cast concrete, they provide materials and professional guidance to bring your vision to life. Military and first responders get special discounts. Visit Lee May Black Showroom or LeeMayBlack.com. Lee May Black, building your dream one block at a time.
Tony Colombo here for Gutter Pros, your all-in-one gutter service team that brings years of experience and quality that's affordable right to your doorstep. We discovered Gutter Pros a few years ago when we bought our home and inherited a gutter issue that was on the road to becoming a potentially big problem, but thanks to Gutter Pros was stopped before causing any major damage. They've also repaired the siding on our home because along with gutter repair, gutter installation, and leaf protection, the Gutter Pros are also the best for siding repair and installation. Learn about all the ways Gutter Pros can help your home at gutterpros.com.
Happy Father's Day!
For Father's Day, families everywhere giving dads 40% of the effort they put into Mother's Day.
Dad, I love you.
I appreciate everything you've done for me and all the sacrifices.
I love you, Dad.
Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day for everybody.
Happy Father's Day.
My father's a hero.
Thank you for everything, Pops.
Happy Father's Day from some of Dad's favorites: Ray Ray's Kettle Corn, Pretty Little Paws, the Augusta Chamber of Commerce, and News Talk STL.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefontaine, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm John Scott. President Trump is defending his deployment of National Guard troops in Los Angeles.
We're going to have troops everywhere. We're not going to let this happen to our country. We're not going to let our country be torn apart.
In Los Angeles, ICE said it arrested 118 people who it claims are in the U.S. illegally, including 5 alleged gang members and others with criminal histories. The activity from ICE sparked protest in the city. Los Angeles Police Chief Jim McConnell says authorities won't tolerate violent, destructive behavior from the protesters.
An act of violence, whether toward officers, demonstrators, or the public, will be met with swift and lawful action. Our goal is to maintain order without escalating conflict and to protect everybody's right to safety.
President Trump wrote that Governor Gavin Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass should thank him. He accused them of being untruthful for saying the Guard troops were not necessary. Also at townhall.com, high-level delegations from the U.S. and China meeting in London for trade talks. BBC correspondent Stephen McDonald.
China wants better access to the software to make chips because in the future it wants to be independent in this area, and the US has been blocking China's access to these chips. What the US wants from China is better access to its rare earths to be used in, say, vehicle manufacturing. But in terms of these talks, we are guessing, really. We don't have an agenda. But the fact that these two very high-powered negotiating teams are having these talks, that is at least a step in the right direction.
Prison escapee Grant Harden, known as the Devil in the Ozarks, has been captured and transferred to the Varner Supermax prison southeast of Little Rock. He had been on the run for nearly 2 weeks. On Wall Street, the Dow had 100 points. The NASDAQ composite is up 90. More at townhall.com.
Hey, it's Mike Rohn. If I have a choice, I like to do business with companies that actually stand for something. That's why I switched from Verizon to Pure Talk. No offense to Verizon, I'm sure they stand for something. I just don't know what it is. Pure Talk, on the other hand, is a veteran-owned company that supports our military in a big way, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I also appreciate unlimited talk and text and plenty of data for half the cost of the big guys, and I do like being on America's most dependable 5G network for just $20 a month. But what I really appreciate is no contract, no cancellation fees, and Pure Talk's commitment to handle all their customer service in this country. I saw it for myself. I went to Georgia. I got a tour of their headquarters. I met their CEO, and I talked to the same customer service folks that you'll talk to when you dial pound 250 and say keyword Mike Rowe. Switch today and save 50% off your first month when you dial pound 250 and say keyword Mike Rowe. Pure Talk, a wireless company that actually stands for something.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Onder Law. Call for a free consultation because winning is what we do at Onder Law. Call 314 or 618-9000. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert meteorologist Kristen Cornett with your forecast. Finally, a beautiful day, sunny skies with a high of 83, lower humidity. We'll be mostly clear tonight as we drop to 59. And then Tuesday, another gorgeous day, sunny skies with a high of 83. That's your First Alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Kristen Cornett.
Attention all gun enthusiasts, don't miss the big St. Louis County Gun Show, June 20th through 22nd at the SCL Athletic Center in Fenton. Over 450 tables of pistols, handguns, rifles, log guns, shotguns, ammo, and more. The fun starts Friday, June 20th at 4, continues all weekend. Admission $14 and good for the entire weekend. Kids 12 and under get in free. With discounts for veterans, first responders, and anyone that mentions Aaron sent me. The big St. Louis County Gun Show, the weekend of June 20th. More info at bkpromotions.us.
Hey, it's Vic Porcelli here with our great friend Chris Cooper from Serenity Wealth Management. Hi, Chris.
How are you, Vic?
I don't want to put anybody else down, but when you go up and visit you at Serenity Wealth, your place looks like home.
So a lot of financial advisory offices, they have, the big mahogany desk or the big marble entryways and things like that. The stock market channel on the TV when you walk in the door, right? That doesn't really drive a good conversation. Good financial guidance and advice starts with a good conversation. People are nervous. People are afraid to talk about finances, right? And so you can see a little standoffish. Well, my objective is to try to have a good casual conversation. By having those conversations about life, goals, objectives, it's what makes me understand what our financials are supposed to fund.
So if somebody does want to have a good conversation, how do they do that? How do they find you?
Our website is the best way to do that because you can get all the information you need, understand where we are, get a little bit more information, all that. SerenityWealthNow.com.
Reach out to Chris and Stacy today at SerenityWealthNow.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC.
Are you sitting on hidden treasure? Manchester Coin and Jewelry wants to turn your valuables into cash. We're Missouri's premier gold buyers and jewelry specialists with years of expertise. We offer top dollar for your coins, antiques, precious metals, and collectibles. From gold and silver to clocks and jewelry, we buy it all. Don't let your treasures collect dust. Let Manchester Coin and Jewelry give you the best value. Visit online at buyingvaluables.net or come see him today at 141 in Manchester and tell him News Talk STL sent you.
1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL, live and local.
Listen to what those local folks are telling you.
News Talk STL. This hour of the Allman Report brought to you by Proctor Drapery Blinds and Shutters. Proctor, spelled like doctor. ProctorDrapery.com.
I can't get these memories out of my mind.
Like us on Facebook at News Talk STL.
The Department of Justice has indicted the illegal alien terrorist from Maryland, the so-called Maryland man, who is actually a foreign terrorist from El Salvador, to make him face justice for his monstrous crimes against humanity. Another huge win for the Trump administration. What do Democrats have to say about this now? They celebrated this guy. They worshiped this guy. They treated him as a hero. Now he's been indicted by a grand jury for committing some of the most heinous crimes I've ever read about. He's going to do hard time in our jails, and then he's going back home where he belongs, to El Salvador.
And everyone on the left, everyone at DNC HQ, every Democrat elected official, they should all reap the whirlwind of supporting crime and chaos and these conflagrations. There's your SAT word for the day. Out in La La Land. Welcome back to the Allman Report. Tim Jones in for Jamie Allman. I'm so excited to be here because Jamie and I go way back. He is my, I would say, the three guys that are responsible for having me behind this microphone today are Jamie Allman, Jeff Allen, and Rodney Boyd. And I told that story in the first hour about how I first got on St. Louis radio in the first place many, many, many moons ago. I can't believe how long it's been. And Jamie has been a constant mentor and friend ever since. And so it's great to be on here. I am on his show frequently. We put him on ours as well. I'll be back this afternoon. They're going to put me, they're going to lock me up in the closet for a couple hours and recharge me. And then I'll be back out here at 4:00. Chris Arps will not be with us for about 10 days or so. He is over in the Middle East. He's going to bring peace to the Middle East. You just watch what happens when Chris Arps comes back. We're going to have all kinds of great news. No, he is, he's over there on a trip with Newsmax. I will be taking a trip with Newsmax at the end of the month, heading over to Israel. Very exciting that our partnership with Newsmax has bore so much fruit, and they reached out to Chris and I over the last few weeks and invited us to come on two separate trips they were conducting, and I'm very excited to be able to go across to Israel. I was invited when I was in the legislature many years ago, and I could not make it for some reason. There was some conflict. My wife would probably remind me right now that it had something to do with maybe the birth of one of my daughters. Maybe that was it. I don't remember. I honestly don't remember why I couldn't go, but I always regretted it. And I said, if the chance ever happened again, if lo and behold, something fell into my lap again, I would go. So I'm going, and I'm very excited because our Newsmax delegation will include the CEO of Newsmax, Chris Ruddy. It will include Ambassador, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. You all know that guy. And famous talking head, Harvard law professor, former liberal. Well, I don't know. Maybe he still considers himself a small L liberal, one that likes civil rights and equality, not equity. Alan Dershowitz is going to be making the trip with us as well, along with a couple dozen influencers and media people around the country. So very excited about that. And we'll talk about that as it gets closer. But that's why you won't hear Chris this afternoon. But I will be here with producer Joey V. We've got producer Ashland. She got her training wheels on right now, but eventually we're going to take those off and push her down the hill, and she'll be fine. So welcome to the Allman Report. It is 1:09 in the PM. What do we have coming up next? Well, at 1:25-ish, we're going to shift gears to the national scene, and we're going to speak with Jonathan Williams. You know him. He's a frequent voice here at News Talk STL, president, chief economist at the American Legislative Exchange Council. We're going to broaden that conversation. Boy, did we have a barn burner of a conversation with State Senator Nick Schroer, Representative Justin Sparks, the chair and vice chair of the Missouri Freedom Caucus. If you missed that, you missed a lot. I would urge you to go back and listen to the podcast. We'll have that up right after the show concludes. Where can you find our podcasts? Everywhere you can find podcasts. Long story short, Spotify, Apple, whatever your podcast platform is, go to there, go to the Allman Report, and you'll be able to listen to that today. An extended conversation with Senator Schroer, Representative Sparks. And the Missouri legislative session will carry on this week, but we're going to talk to Jonathan Williams about the one big, beautiful bill and what he thinks of that as an economist and as the leader of a national group that is in layman's terms, I would call it ALEC is a trade association for legislators and the private sector to try to come up with great public policy solutions for all of America. And we're going to talk to him about that. And you know what? I'm going to keep the conversation broad with Jonathan. We'll be referring to the Missouri special session. But folks, don't think that Missouri has to deal with these kinds of crises alone, that we're in some kind of vacuum. Taxpayer-funded subsidy plans are all the rage, or at least they were all the rage across the country. I think they're starting to lose their luster. I really do. There's been Chicago just rejected a taxpayer. Believe it or not, blue. You can't get much more blue than Chicago in a very blue state of Illinois, the People's Republic of Illinois, as I call them, even though most downstaters in Illinois, that's pretty much anybody that lives south of Chicago. It's most of the state. They don't like stadium subsidies. Well, they rejected it. Can you believe that? As far gone as Illinois is on almost every issue, they had the fiscal sanity and sense, and that's what this is all about. Why would forget about Republican, why would any person in these challenging economic times here's what's happening to state budgets, folks. Let me explain this. All the Biden bucks and the COVID cash that flowed into state governments all across the country over the last 4 to 5 years, that didn't just go into state budgets in When did we start doing this? 2020, 2021. It didn't all just immediately go in and get immediately spent. As much as politicians and bureaucrats would have loved to have done that, it takes a long time for trillions of dollars to flood into the system and then wash back out. It takes years. We still haven't spent it all, believe it or not. However, we're close to doing that. All of the Biden bucks and COVID cash that washed through Missouri, as well as every other state in the union, are just about wrapped up and done. You know what that's going to do? It's going to cause a giant black hole in state budgets. And there are people like my good friend, Representative Darren Chappell, member of the Freedom Caucus from Southwest Missouri, who has been banging his fist on the table and yelling and screaming about this for years, about the pending fiscal cliff. And you know what the result of that was? You know what the result of that was in Missouri? Liberal Lincoln Huff, the current Republican, so-called Republican chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, he took the arguably much more fiscally sane budget that the House passed back in March of this year, about a $6 billion cut, which was smart. And it wasn't even really a cut. It was just on a further expansion. And he put all that money back in, Lincoln Huff did, and then some. And now on top of that, so on top of spending more money in Missouri state history than ever before, despite the fact that everyone agrees, it's not like there's people that don't agree on this. Liberals and conservatives agree that the gravy train is coming to an end. So knowing that, in a normal world, like in a family or in a business, you would go, oh, well, we maybe shouldn't spend all the money, and maybe we should put some money aside in a savings account or a money market or a CD or a safety deposit box so we have it when we're going to have this big economic hole. Nope, not in government world. In government world, they spend as much and then more of the money as possible. Missouri has lost its fiscal sense, because we're supposed to have a supermajority of Republicans who campaign every single cycle on doing what? Cutting taxes, reducing spending, and controlling and limiting the size and scope of government. Very few, I'm telling you, put that into practice. And if you don't believe me, go out and do your own research and look at the bazillion scorecards on these very subjects that are out there from national organizations and state-based organizations like the Freedom Principle of Missouri, like the National Club for Growth, like the Heritage Foundation, like the American Conservative Union. I could go on and on and on. And you will see the same legislators rise to the top on fiscal sense and sanity, and the same legislators sink to the bottom on the same. And unfortunately, there's fewer of the former and more of the latter. And so knowing that we're about to fall off this fiscal cliff, what do they do in Missouri? They spend all the money that possible that they can. And then on top of it, they come up with the bright idea to give the multi-billionaires who own the Kansas City Chiefs and the Royals. Nothing against them. I'm glad they're multi-billionaires. I celebrate their multi-billionaire-ness. But that doesn't mean that we should be giving them taxpayer money. They have rejected these plans in other parts of the country. And then you know what they've done? If they've really wanted to do it, they've gone ahead and they've built the stadium from private funds. They've figured out how to finance it. And I love the Hunt family because I think they are wonderful people. I understand they're God-fearing Christian conservatives. Shame on them for asking for this in the first place. And on the Kansas City Royals ownership staff as well. And I'm telling you, this deal that was constructed, this billionaire bailout boondoggle, the triple B, in conjunction with this fake, phony real estate property tax relief, was one of the worst deals I've seen going through the legislature, and I've seen a lot of them. And you know what? I have voted for a few too. I am not pure when it comes to this. I just try to do better. And there were many, and on the other hand, I will tell you this. There were plenty of times as speaker and as majority leader when the Jefferson City Swamp wanted me to move something forward, and I would kill it year in and year out. And I'd finally get to the point where I was so exasperated and they wanted me to move something forward. You know what I did? I let it move through and I let people vote on it, but I spoke against it and voted against it. And I did everything I could to defeat it. And the gas tax was one of my crowning achievements. I killed that bill a couple of times, and then I let it go through the last time. I voted against it, spoke against it. And I warned all of the stakeholders who wanted the gas tax put on the ballot in Missouri that it would fail, and fail it did. So you know what they did after I left? So one bad thing about term limits, you lose the good people with the bad people. And I was trying to do everything I could to protect and safeguard Missouri's freedom, liberties, and pocketbooks. They figured out some kind of convoluted cockamamie scheme to run a gas tax through and circumvent the Hancock Amendment. I think it was a constitutional violation, but who's the taxpayer advocate that takes big government to court? Big government with all of its big government lawyers and big government donors, they tend to end up winning on these things because people can't ultimately have the funds to challenge them. Well, they got the gas tax through, and there's many people still reeling from that vote and realizing how bad it was. And that was years ago. This will be a zillion times worse. Trust me. I'm telling you all right now. When you have a conversation with any and all elected officials who are running for office next year, they're going to start knocking on your door, having events, and calling you on the telephone and hitting you up on social media for your vote and for your support over the next, it's June, over the next 14 months, because we have an August 2026 primary right around the corner. The first question you should ask them, how did you vote on Senate Bill 3 in the session last year? How did you vote on the taxpayer-funded billionaire boondoggle, the stadium bailout for the Chiefs and the Royals? How did you vote on that? Depending on their answer, you'll know exactly what kind and type of Republican that you're speaking with, because I believe this is such a pivotal litmus test of anyone's conservatism and even republicanism, basic republicanism. Somebody like Reagan and even somebody like Trump, who's a consummate deal maker, they would not support this provision either. So we're going to talk to Jonathan Williams about taxpayer-funded stadium bailouts at 125. We're going to talk to him about the big, beautiful bill. And a topic that did come up last week in conjunction with this, how do you do actual property tax relief and reform for Missourians or any other state in the country? We'll talk about all those issues and more when we talk to Jonathan about 125. What are the other big stories of the day? Before we get out of here, I got about a minute or two left here. Well, some of the other big headlines of the day, we've covered the L.A. riots and wildfires. Well, they probably are setting things on fire. That's going on. Oh, how about the fact that ABC ended up having to suspend one of their biggest anti-Trump haters, Terry Moran, over a social media rant. Yeah, and many are thinking that he may have meant to send that as a text message and not a social media post. So always read your tweets and your text twice before you hit the send button. Yeah, he got what he deserved. Here's the headline here. Liberal pundits and anti-Trump figures are slamming ABC News, no bastion of conservatism, for suspending longtime correspondent Terry Moran after he ranted on social media about President Donald Trump and Stephen Miller. They can clutch their pearls and act mad, but this is spot on for Moran. So says Tommy Vietor, a co-host of Pod Save America, reacting to Moran's deleted social media. So Moran deleted it after he posted. So he knew he had crossed a line, even for him, that referred to both men as world-class haters. So that happened. And you know what? I'm glad to see that there was a revolution at the ballot box last November, and I don't think we all appreciate how big and broad it was. We are now realizing as a society that certain axioms are true, and there are a couple objective truths, like the fact that biological men shouldn't be in girls' sports, like the fact that we shouldn't hate elected officials who want to safeguard and secure our borders from an illegal alien invasion, like the fact that we should not be anti-Semites and raging on. There's a difference between free speech and promoting genocide. The former is protected by the First Amendment. The latter is not. Okay. The promotion of genocide, there actually is a U.S. code statutory provision, which has been upheld as constitutional, against promoting genocide, whether it's on college campuses or anywhere else. And so there's a difference between peaceful protest and violent, virulent, pro-genocide anti-Semitism. And that's the distinction that does have a difference. Hey, it's 1:22 in the Heartland. We're going to take a quick break now here on the Allman Report. We're going to be right back with Jonathan Williams, President and Chief Economist of ALEC. The big, beautiful bill. What is Jonathan hearing from the land of make-believe in which he resides up there in Washington, D.C. about its prospects in the Senate? How might the bill get better? Hopefully it won't get worse. He'll have the details on that and the prescription for what ails the states. Next, on the Allman Report. Tim Jones in for Jamie Allman here at 101.9, 94.1. This is News Talk, STL.
Watch us on our live stream using Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter.
I think we should be able to have a civil conversation.
The news and talk that matters to St. Louis.
This conversation has completely made me crazy.
This is complete insanity.
News Talk STL.
Hey, Jamie Allman here for Window World, the most celebrated window company in the nation. Qualified Remodeler magazine acknowledges it's the top seller all throughout the United States, and it has the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. It is a double paned window, and that means it is durable as all get out, also thermally superior to all the rest of the replacement windows you're going to find out there. Plus, it's absolutely beautiful. There is a free home estimate. You can ask the person there to stand on the window and show you how durable it really is. These are beautiful windows from the inside and out. They have some excellent financing plans for you, so you're going to be able to get in at a great price and a great financing rate. It's going to be fantastic for you. They go 36 months. I mean, this is amazing. I'm really super proud to have Window World, a world famous window company supporting free, common sense, conservative radio. They are the best for less, and they're official window of the St. Louis Blues. All you have to do is go to windowworld.com, windowworld.com. That'll set you up. Make sure you let them know that Jamie Allman sent you. Windowworld.com, simply the best for less.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on Newstalk STL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
Get ready, St. Louis. The Cubs are coming to town June 23rd through the 26th. The Cardinals host baseball's best rivalry at Busch Stadium in a series that always delivers. The Chicago STL rivalry is legendary, and the energy in the ballpark will be electric. It's the perfect way to spend a summer day or night at the ballpark with passionate fans and nonstop action. Don't miss out. Get your tickets today at cardinals.com/tickets.
Hey, this is Sonny Gray, St. Louis Cardinals for the Lou.
Catch a Cardinals game on your next date night or friends night out. Whether it's love in the stands or laughter with your crew, nothing beats ballpark vibes under the lights. Cold drinks, great eats, and Cardinals baseball. Check out Friday Night Live at Busch Stadium and enjoy happy hour price food and drinks all game long. Every Friday home game. Get your tickets today at cardinals.com and make memories that go beyond the scoreboard. Busch Stadium, where great nights begin.
Here's my problem.
Completely agree with your sentiments.
He talks about we're divided. Well, yeah, we are. And we need to wake up as a country and realize what's going on.
101.9 and 94.1.
Number one for conservative talk.
News Talk STL. Made in St. Louis for St. Louis. It's News Talk STL.
This bill provides $1.6 trillion in mandatory savings. And when you combine that with the tariff revenue that President Trump's America First trade agenda is bringing in, nearly $3 trillion over the next 10 years, that's a projection, according to the Congressional Budget Office. And when you combine that with the Council of Economic Advisors projected growth of 3%, we're going to cut the deficit by $8 trillion over the next 10 years. And look at all of the other pro-growth economic policies this president has taken. He understands the concerns about our nation's crippling debt. That's why we need this bill to pass.
Carolyn Levitt over the weekend defending and promoting the One Big Beautiful Bill up there on Capitol Hill. Let's go now live to the land of make-believe and talk to one of my favorite people who continues to wage the war and fight the good fight, Jonathan Williams, the president and chief economist of ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council. Everything that ALEC does is very transparently online at alec.org. Jonathan, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us once again back here in the Heartland on News Talk STL.
Well, it's great to be back with you, my friend. And yes, this land of make-believe is totally playing up to its name right now. But thankfully, we've got some good things happening with this tax reform and some other items.
Indeed. Jonathan, I have been closely following you and our good friends, Stephen Moore and Grover Norquist and Dr. Art Laffer, because I've wanted to know the details of the Big Beautiful Bill. Because, Jonathan, there's a lot of people out there, even some Republicans I know, who are like, no, I don't blame them, Jonathan, for being cynical. They're like, Tim, this bill really doesn't do anything. It doesn't move the needle. It doesn't really help us. It's just more posturing from Washington, D.C. Jonathan, I hear what they're saying. And yes, we can always want more. But in these extremely partisan, polarized times where there's thin majorities, especially in the House, Jonathan, I do think that the One Big Beautiful Bill is a turning of the Titanic back towards some form of fiscal sanity. Am I correct?
I think you're right. And, I think one of the most key elements of this all is, regardless of anything else, because, I would love to see more spending cut, as I know you would, and most Americans, I think, we need to get this national debt under control. This bill begins to start to do that, right? When it comes to making sure that Medicaid is only going to those that are actually working or volunteering, or some basic common sense themes like that. But the most important piece of this is, if nothing passes by the end of this calendar year, Americans are going to wake up with a nasty hangover on January 1st, which is the largest tax increase in American history, with the expiration of all the individual Trump tax cuts from 2017 that were passed then. And so that is something that I think gets lost in a lot of the shuffle about ideal, spending reductions and debt reductions, all very important conversations. But something has to get done first on making sure that the American taxpayer is sound going forward. And like I said, the Big Beautiful Bill has some really important Medicaid reforms and other areas there that are being addressed. And it also addresses some really important needs when it comes to homeland security and border security, investing in technology. As we've seen anything from the last couple of days out in Los Angeles, we absolutely need more sanity around our policy when it comes to illegal aliens coming in with criminal backgrounds, and what needs to be done when they're here in the United States.
Indeed. Jonathan, I'm so glad you brought up one of our favorite subjects, which is cutting taxes and reforming our disastrous IRS tax code. Jonathan, from JFK to Reagan to Trump, haven't we proven over the last, 6-7 decades that tax cuts do work for the American people, for all the American people? They do provide prosperity, and they don't bankrupt the budget. In fact, isn't often the opposite true because of the growth that follows? Don't we have the details on that now?
We sure do. This goes back decades, to your point, and starting with a Democrat and a pro-growth Democrat like JFK, cutting marginal tax rates, having President Reagan take them from 70+% down to 28% by the time he left office, and seeing the economic boom that we saw because of Reaganomics, and putting more hands in hardworking taxpayers' pockets to go out and invest and build businesses and make a better life for themselves and their children. That's the kind of success that we once again saw through the Trump tax cuts of 2017, and would be completely lost if Congress doesn't get its act together and actually do something to renew those tax cuts. And moreover, Tim, the other piece of this that we see every single day, and you and I have talked about this nonstop now for almost 20 years, is we see so many state level successes of states that value tax cuts and what it means to put that money back to work in the economy through hardworking taxpayers and entrepreneurs. The tax cutting states are some of the vastly growing states across the country. When it comes to Texas and Florida and Tennessee, the states that can do without personal income taxes. Missouri's seen great success from cutting taxes, and you compare that with Illinois, that's done anything but cut taxes over the last 10 or 15 years, and you see the stark differences of growth states cutting taxes and states that are losing people and losing jobs are the ones that are raising taxes. That's the 50 laboratories of democracy. I think we ought to, focus obviously on this federal lessons of the incredible success of the Trump and the Reagan and the Kennedy tax cuts. But even moreover, these state lessons, I think, are just so impactful. That's so great to have our good friend Jason Smith from Missouri chairing House Ways and Means in Washington, D.C. right now, helping to lead this effort on the big, beautiful bill. And I think there's no surprise that he was such a leader at the state level as ALEC chair in Missouri when he served with you and passing tax cuts, the largest tax cut in Missouri history at that time. No surprise that he's coming out to Washington and doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Speaking to Jonathan Williams, he's the president and the chief economist at ALEC, ALEC.org, the American Legislative Exchange Council, nationwide trade association for free market, limited government, federalist styled legislators. Jonathan, the other side of the coin of that is making sure that states and the federal government control their spending, right? You can't just cut taxes and then spend like drunken sailors. No offense to drunken sailors. And sometimes even, they might blush at some of the spending that we are seeing now on the federal and local level. Jonathan, we're engaged. We're embroiled right now in a big debate in Missouri that you're aware of. We're having a extraordinary special session. It's not really that special at all regarding taxpayer-funded subsidies for stadium rebuilds. And Jonathan, you don't have to talk about the specifics of the Missouri bill. You may or may not have looked at it, but I know you've been aware of these things all across the country. Spending is just as important, and spending on the right things, right?
Well, exactly right. And, if there's anything to take for this discussion federally right now is to get back to priority-based budgeting. And, 49 out of the 50 states have a balanced budget amendment in their constitution or in state law. In my personal opinion, that needs to be something we talk about in short order here in Washington, D.C. But to get to the idea of taxpayer-funded stadiums, this is something that we've looked at for a number of years, at ALEC, and, nobody wants to lose, teams to surrounding states. I mean, you've got the bad memories in the past of the Rams, of course, and lots of cities around the country have similar stories. And even when you give out a massive amount of taxpayer money, these teams will continue to look for the bigger handouts. And I think the bigger question is how does the taxpayer fare? I mean, that is at the end of the day what Reagan called America's forgotten special interest group, is the hardworking taxpayer. What are they on the hook for? How is the deal arranged? And there's a big fairness question, I think, that many of our members ask, to say, not that we have anything against millionaires or billionaires, but most of these owners of sports franchises are billionaires. Why is it that they need taxpayers to come and pay for some of the very things that make their business profitable long term? And so I think just from a common sense perspective, most of the people that we talk to say, yeah, we don't want to lose our teams, but if it's going to cost hundreds of millions or billions of dollars of taxpayer funds, we really need to look at that with a very fine-tooth comb.
Mm-hmm. Jonathan, I really want to applaud, and I think folks know this. I've been a member of ALEC in many different ways for like 18 years since you started ALEC, and I started in the Missouri legislature, and I now do work for ALEC here in the Heartland. It's an honor and privilege to do that, and I've really enjoyed watching you and the CEO of ALEC, Lisa Nelson, expand ALEC into so many awesome areas, tackling so many difficult, complex subjects, and providing, with the assistance of so many awesome state legislative leaders across the country, actual policy solutions. And folks, you can find them. They're all available at alec.org. And Jonathan, there's reports on education and on healthcare and on regulations. And one of ALEC's cornerstone publications is something that you help draft every year with the aforementioned Stephen Moore and Dr. Art Laffer. And that's the Rich States, Poor States analysis. The 18th annual edition came out. Jonathan, I want folks to know that for 18 years straight, the state of Utah has been chosen as number one on its economic outlook and its economic underpinnings. What can Missouri and all other states that are kind of not quite in that top tier learn from what Utah has done?
Well, it's an amazing success story, and it's multifaceted, as you can imagine. But I mean, to boil it down from a strategy perspective, I think what Utah does is they look around the country. They said, hey, yeah, we were number one in the first edition, but we're not going to be that way if we stand still. And so they realized that you could fall behind by standing still, given how many states are moving in the right direction. I mean, even this session, Tim, we had Mississippi vote to phase out their personal income tax. We just had Oklahoma a couple of weeks ago vote to phase out their personal income tax. And the key to Utah's success at staying at number one was, yeah, they did a flat tax in the first year. They've done property tax reform. They've looked at how many federal funds are coming out to their state and analyzed those. They've done pension reform. But the key to what they do is they don't just stop. And we actually looked at the numbers and said if Utah would have made no changes to its policy environment after being number one 18 years ago, Utah would be at like number 23 in richer states, poor states for economic outlook today. So that just tells you how many states have moved the ball so far in the right direction. And that's the beauty of, back again to the 50 laboratories of democracy and federalism, and letting states work and be competitive in their bids to grow jobs and help their taxpayers. But there's so much to learn about Utah from a policy context that we need several interviews to get to. But I think from a leadership perspective, and you have Senate President Stuart Adams, who you know from our ALEC board, you have the Speaker of the House, and you have people that are long-term thinkers to say, not are we going to just be here for the next election cycle, we want to create policy that's going to be good for the next generation.
Indeed, indeed. Speaking to Jonathan Williams, he's the president, the chief economist at the American Legislative Exchange Council. Jonathan, ALEC, like I mentioned earlier, gets into a lot of different subject matter areas. And one of those is energy, right? And Jonathan, we witnessed what happens. A lot of people don't pay attention to energy, right? We take it for granted. We're going to flip on the light switch or fire up the computer and it's just going to work. But that doesn't happen by magic, does it, Jonathan? And one of the things we saw happen under the previous administration was what happens when you attack American energy independence and Americans' ability. Jonathan, energy is, in addition to tax policy and spending, energy is a very important part of this soup of making sure the states and the country run well, right?
Well, it sure is. I mean, you look at it from a national perspective, Tim, and energy independence and energy security is a national security issue these days. We have, lots of challenges around the world, clearly, that we see every single day. And we cannot be dependent on others to fuel the energy demand of America's future, and to be a leader in areas like AI, for instance, and the technology. That's going to require a whole lot more energy supply in this country. And I think what you saw in the Biden administration, and certainly in the Obama administration before that, was a war on energy, whether it was Operation Choke Point that they used to stop financing of energy projects, whether it's ESG and this weaponized program to basically shut down American energy production, or whether you see just the battles that they play out at the state level, and you have folks that are looking for lots of taxpayer dollars to fund energy projects like wind and solar that are not reliable and not affordable in many cases, versus what we need to think about holistically is all of the above without taxpayer subsidies. How are we going to create that energy supply for the future? And that includes everything in a free market context. But what we should not ever forget about that reliable, affordable energy piece, that things like natural gas, for instance, very clean, reliable, affordable, things like that had been discarded in the Obama and the Biden era, and has been treated just the same as other forms of energy. And it's something I think we have to rethink. I just got a notice here where we live in Virginia that our regional electric grid operator is saying without more energy supply of affordable, reliable energy put on the grid, we can expect brownouts and maybe even blackouts here on the East Coast of the United States. We thought that was always a California problem. It turns out with record demand and more electricity needed to power technology and AI, especially with data centers and what we're seeing going on, which is great that we're staying ahead of China and our competitors in that space. But what it's going to mean is more dedication to real energy production in the United States. And that's something we at ALEC are going to have as a key priority going forward.
Jonathan, one last question for you. And let's finish where we started, back with the one big, beautiful bill. Being that you are roosted there right in the heart of the land of make-believe, I know you get to rub shoulders and speak often with a lot of the key decision makers in and around the Beltway bubble. What are you hearing from the Senate and House folks about the prospects of the bill as it's working its way through the Senate? How might the Senate make the bill better, and what challenges are they trying to overcome to get it across the finish line?
It's a great question. And over the course of June, I think you'll see a leader soon from South Dakota and members of his Republican conference analyze ways to continue to improve upon the bill as it came out of the House, and maybe address ways to spend less money or save more in certain areas, enhance Medicaid reforms, or even adjust the state and local tax deduction, the SALT deduction that benefits really a handful of wealthy taxpayers in a handful of states, and especially blue cities and blue states, to go back to something towards where the Trump tax cuts were in 2017 versus what the House ended up with. But at the end of the day, they're going to probably make some changes, which means it's going to have to come back to the House for a final vote out of conference committee. And what we have is a very narrow Republican majority where we have Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, an ALEC alumni member from Louisiana who's done yeoman's work, incredible work trying to get the most conservative package across the finish line that could pass. And then it's really a numbers game at the end of the day to see if the House members can stick together and say, let's make sure that we don't lose these incredible Trump tax cuts. And that will play out over the course of the coming weeks. So pop some popcorn, stay tuned. But most importantly, stay engaged in terms of what's moving, because this has huge ramifications for all of your pocketbooks. And I don't think failure is an option when it comes to not renewing the Trump tax cuts. If that does not happen, I think we're guaranteed a recession going forward. If we can keep moving in the right direction, what we need is economic growth. You heard it there from the White House press conference. If we can get continued 3% economic growth in this country long term, that goes a whole huge way towards paying down our national debt.
Amen, indeed, to that. Great words to wrap up on. Jonathan Williams, President, Chief Economist at ALEC. He is on Twitter X. He's on Twitter X at Tax Economist, right, Jonathan? Tax Economist.
That's right.
Yep.
On brand.
Indeed. And check out everything that Jonathan and I discussed at ALEC.org. It's all up there. Ask your legislator if they're a member of ALEC, and if they're not, why not? Why wouldn't they be for free markets, limited government, and federalism? ALEC.org. Jonathan Williams, our guest once again here today. Jonathan, thanks so much for everything. That was a great discussion. Enjoyed it. And we'll touch base with you again sometime in the near future, my friend.
Sounds great. Never a dull moment in D.C., so we'll be in touch.
Indeed. That is Jonathan Williams with ALEC, ALEC.org. My goodness, how time flies. I cannot believe it's 1:44 in the PM already. We got one final segment left. I'll make sure that I touch on anything we may have missed that you need to know. Will Donald Trump not only send the National Guard, but the U.S. Marines into Los Angeles as the anti-ICE chaos appears to be spiraling completely out of control? We'll talk about that and more when we return here on the Allman Report. Tim Jones in for Jamie Allman, 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
Watch us on our live stream using Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter.
Hey, folks, there is one great truth about retirement, and that is that you're probably going to live 20, 30, 40 years after your retirement. But the other truths are not so hot, and those include your lack of diversification. If that's not the case, then you need the Gemini Wealth Group to walk you through it and make sure that in your retirement, you're living comfortably. You're living with a long view of retirement, not a short view. You're living with the knowledge that you have to take care of some health things and some taxes and all kinds of stuff that you might have to take care of. And of course, your rental or your mortgage, whatever it happens to be, they will make sure that your portfolio is strong enough to get you through that lovely long haul known as retirement. The GeminiWealthGroup.com, the GeminiWealthGroup.com. And this is not only for you if you are about to retire. If you are already into retirement, maybe a few years here, you're not really comfortable with how things are working out, and you want to kind of switch it up or get a second opinion on your retirement strength, the Gemini Wealth Group absolutely is your go-to. They're not only supporting free, common sense, conservative radio and News Talk STL, they're supporting you in some of the best parts of your life, and that would be retirement. So make sure you're comfortable, make sure you are fortified for your retirement, and the Gemini Wealth Group will help you do that. The GeminiWealthGroup.com, the GeminiWealthGroup.com.
Are you in a constant battle with mosquitoes outside your house? Well, stop smacking yourself in the face and call Mosquito Joe. Whether it's playing ball with the kids or cooking out with friends, Mosquito Joe treatments allow you to enjoy your yard without the nuisance of pesky mosquitoes, ticks, and fleas. No more itching and scratching, and no more wasting time on smelly products that don't work. Visit MosquitoJoe.com or call 855-ASK-A-JOE to get more information and a free quote. With Mosquito Joe, outside is fun again.
Success. It's discipline. It's teamwork. It's the drive and passion inside of us that comes before all recognition. It's the best in each of us, made better by the best in all of us. Whatever success looks like to you, Stifel is invested in yours. That's why Stifel is one of the fastest growing global wealth management firms in the country. So whether you're an advisor or an investor, choose Stifel, where success meets success. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
Happy Father's Day!
For Father's Day, families everywhere giving dads 40% of the effort they put into Mother's Day.
Dad, I love you. I appreciate everything you've done for me and all the sacrifices.
I love you, Dad. Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day for everybody.
Happy Father's Day.
My father's a hero.
Thank you for everything, Pops.
Happy Father's Day from some of Dad's favorites. Hired Bear Customs, Patriot Powder Coating, Tropical World Beds, and News Talk STL.
Hey, folks, Jamie Allman here for Newsteader's Fine Jewelry right there at Doherty Ferry and Big Bend. WowDiamonds.com. It's Wow Diamonds for a reason. These are beautiful lab-grown diamonds. They are gorgeous. They will blind you when you walk in and see them, but that's a good thing. Great engagement sets, wedding sets, all these beautiful God-created gems, sapphires, rubies, you name it, garnets, and also all the gold you need, and the famous bull of a watch. WowDiamonds.com.
I don't know where to start with Medicare. It's so confusing.
Feeling overwhelmed by Medicare? The Westoff Agency is here to help.
Hi, I'm Debbie Westoff with Westoff Agency. We have helped hundreds of people just like you navigate Medicare options.
Our team of experts makes the process simple and stress-free.
Let me, Debbie Westoff, be your personal Medicare guide, walking you through each choice to find the coverage that truly fits.
Visit westoffagency.com for more information. That's westoffagency.com.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
Did Donald Trump and Republicans make everything great again over the weekend? We'll discuss with Senator Jim Talon at 4:25. At 5:25, Red State Headlines with Susie Moore.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps. Weekdays at 4 on News Talk STL. Watch us on our live stream using Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Allman Report. Thanks for being with us this afternoon and listening to us throughout the day at News Talk STL. Carry us with you wherever you may go. How the heck do you do that? Do you have a telephone? Does anybody say telephone anymore? Do you have a phone? Do you have a phone in your pocket? Like one of these, if you're watching me on Rumble, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Instagram. Do you have one of these telephones, one of these phones in your pocket? Well, then you have a radio. Did you realize that? Yeah. Download the app, News Talk STL. You know, I'll tell you what, it's brilliant in its simplicity, right? Everything here at the station is something around News Talk STL. So the app is called News Talk STL. The website is newstalkstl.com. Facebook, Twitter, News Talk STL. And I just noticed we crossed a threshold. I've been watching this very closely the last few weeks because I knew we were getting close. This radio station did not exist less than 4 years ago, right? We will be celebrating our 4-year anniversary next month in July. We did not exist 3 years and 11 months ago. We now have 4,000 likes on our Facebook page. We were stuck at 3.9 for some reason, probably because Zuckerberg hates us, but we were stuck at 3.9 forever. We hit 4,000 sometime over the weekend because I know I checked it last week and then I just checked it just now. 4,000 likes, 5,700 plus followers. I never really figured out the difference between likes and followers. You would think followers would be more important if they're following, but then there's likes. So whatever. 4,000 likes, 5,700 plus followers for a radio station that did not exist less than 4 years ago. Give yourselves a hand. That's absolutely fantastic. I think that is just one measure of our success. So don't keep us a secret. You know, Jeff Allen, one of our owners, we got Jeff and Joe and Jeff, And they tell a lot of great stories about radio past, because I think that's because they're really old. So I say that now as I'm in my 50s. But one of the famous stories Jeff always tells was that, he was at this other radio station for a very long time. And it's late in its second decade, he ran into somebody who was like a buddy or a friend or an acquaintance. And they were like, oh, we have a conservative talk station in St. Louis. And he's like, oh, for the love of all things. And this was something that had a lot of money, this station, a lot of money, a lot of branding, blah, blah, blah. So my point is, we're only barely 4 years old and we're approaching 6,000 followers on Facebook. We have thousands of followers on Twitter, Rumble, the YouTube channel. I don't care how you guys and ladies follow the station. I really don't care. However you need to do it, do it. My request to you would be, and a lot of times, we do have to remind people to do things and people are like, oh, yeah, I can do that. So I'm asking you, I'm begging, I'm pleading with you, groveling before you. Please share us. Don't keep us a secret. We love that you're in the family, but make the family bigger and tell everyone about News Talk STL. And most importantly, the app really leads to kind of everything else because we're entering into a world. We're already in a world where most people are not listening and watching things like they used to for decades and decades past. Producer Ashlyn, for instance, and her generation, they now watch everything on these little 5-inch screens. I have 2 young daughters. Thankfully, that's my connection to the next generation. And so I see their habits and what they do. Yeah, we still watch television, but we mainly watch everything on streaming platforms. I don't know if my daughters know that local TV exists. Well, I think they know it exists, but they don't watch it. There's no reason for them to watch it. They are so trained on oh, I want to watch X. Well, I'm just going to go find X. I'm going to look for it. I'm going to search for it. I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to press play. Same thing with radio. Radio, I believe, is going to last until the end of time because it is like sports. It's very much like live sports. You can't recreate, even with AI, that soul connection to a real person in live time, speaking directly to you like I'm doing with you now, where you feel that personal connection because that we live in and of this community, this great larger community of the St. Louis Metro, which it really expands much broadly than St. Louis. Hello to all of our friends in Lincoln County and beyond, and St. Charles County and beyond, and Franklin County and beyond, and of course, my very good friends, Jefferson County and beyond. We have Jeffco Patriot Radio and tons of other great weekend shows. So it is that medium, but here's what's going to happen. And it's already happening. You're eventually going to be buying vehicles and Apple CarPlay and whatever Google has. I'm not an Android person, so I don't know all the parlance, but they have a similar platform. When you buy a new vehicle now, what happens? You have this big screen, whether it's an electric vehicle or a gas vehicle. It's a big screen on the dashboard. And when you start the car, what pops up on the screen? A bunch of apps. Well, eventually, when you buy your new vehicle, you're going to put your favorite apps on there, and some of them are going to be the people you listen to, and they're going to be things like News Talk STL. And you're not the next generation, and I already have people in their 30s and 40s saying, hey, Tim, I heard your podcast today. And I go, okay. And then I'll ask them, what time are you listening to my podcast? It was about 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm like, oh, you were listening to the broadcast. They're like, yeah, whatever. I don't argue with them. I don't debate them. I don't care how they listen to us, but they listen to us. And so the app is kind of the new basis. It used to be the AM or FM bands. And of course, we still have those. That's why we say 101.9, 94.1. We also have an HD channel. If you have an HD radio, 99.1 HD3. Okay. So there's a million ways to listen to us on that terrestrial radio, that earth-based radio, but you can also listen to us in the great internet and beyond. And that's through the app, that's online, et cetera, and so forth. Hey, a couple quick announcements before we get out of here. I got about a minute or so left. Father's Day giveaway. Father's Day is this weekend. Yeah. Hey, I want to wish a happy Father's Day officially to my dad, to my grandfathers who are no longer with us, and to all the father figures. They're not with us on this planet. They're looking and listening from above. Thanks to all the dads. You guys deserve a giveaway. So we've got one for you. Go to newstalkstl.com. Help celebrate your dad. We're giving away a bunch of golf stuff and some other cool things. The grand prize is a foursome of golf at the Sugar Creek Golf Course. Thank you, Dwayne Eoff and Christine at Sugar Creek. $100 credit, the Hideout at Sugar Creek. Thank you very much to Rick Pogue and Jake Kessner for providing that. So that's the grand prize. And you get to use the fancy News Talk STL VIP room featuring Chris Harps and Tim Jones. The runner-up prize, a foursome of golf at Bridgeton's Berry Hill Golf Course. Beautiful little spot right by the airport. You wouldn't even know you were right by the airport. Thanks to Ray's Kettle Corn, Tropical World of Pets, Iron Bear Customs, Patriot Powder Coating, City of Warrenton, Augusta, Missouri Chamber of Commerce, Pretty Little Paws of O'Fallon, St. Peters. Hey, so that's that. NewsTalkSTL.com. Finally, I want you to support and thank our vets and go to newstalkstl.com for that as well. Vic for Vets will run throughout the entire month of June and then beyond. And finally, help those affected by the May 16th storms. We still need a lot of help for those folks. All that information is at our website as well. Hey, it's a great time being with you on my very good buddy's Allman Report. Jamie Allman, he'll be back in the saddle tomorrow. I want to thank producer Ashlyn. She did a great job this afternoon. Thanks to producer Joey V for all the assist. We will be back. I will be back with Joey and Ashlyn at 4 o'clock today. The Tim Jones and Chris Harp Show, 1019-941 News Talk STL.
Don't cross them lines. What you like?
Hi, I'm Helene Topler, culinary nutritionist at Body of Health Direct Primary Care. Here we do practical wellness. Dr. Randy and I have a common sense approach to healthcare. My passion is helping our members enjoy better nutrition because food is medicine. We approach problems with a lifestyle foundation and cutting-edge medical tool chest. At Body of Health, it's about being your healthiest you. If you want to experience healthcare the way it ought to be, schedule a discovery call today at bodyofhealth.com. That's bodyofhealth.com.
For 3 generations, one family has ruled the road in quality asphalt paving. Ruby's King of the Road Hot Mix Asphalt Paving. Family owned and operated. We're your leading authority for driveways, lanes, and parking areas. No project is too small or too large. We cater to both residential and commercial needs with unbeatable quality at just $38 per square yard plus labor. Call 636-295-9949. 636-295-9949.